given the church situation today versus what the standard that Paul and Jesus themselves gave, what do you think are the most important things? I guess you kind of answered it already, but I guess to make it more explicit, to give some dot points, what do you think are the most important lessons, teachings that Paul's standards can give to the church today, that the church really does need to learn today, and particularly if you can in Pentecostal church context today, both generally and in Pentecostal churches, if you can do that?
Yeah, wow. Well, yeah, Paul, I don't know. I can. There's 2 points really where he defines what it isn't and what it is. He says what this group isn't is we're not a group based on gender, status, or ethnicity. There's neither Jew nor Gentile, male nor female, slave nor free. None of those. All of those are qualifiers outside of this community, and they're essential qualifiers. Status as to whether you're free or a slave is everything you need to know about a person, and then gender and ethnicity, the rest of it. Just we're not about that. You leave those things at the door for whatever all of that's worth. But yeah, I suppose then when he's trying to define what they are, we're talking sort of the vice and virtue lists. Corinthians 6, where he's talking about these are the sorts of people that won't inherit the kingdom of God. Well, those are the clear things that you do these things, and those belong outside the group. And you are not just outside the group, but you're actually outside the kingdom of God, which this group represents. So it's pretty clear what he's saying about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I come back to what I was saying before with where we are as a church. Pentecostal, perhaps, but maybe all churches where you touched on the Sundays. I think that's an important point where for most people, for a lot of people, perhaps church is just going to church on the Sunday. The community itself is just the people that are there for that 1 hour, but they actually have no other real value in your life because you don't see them outside of that 1 hour. And for good and bad reasons. So they're not actually an influential part. You don't identify with those people. You might more closely identify with the people you work with, or certainly with your family, or even the people in your street. Those are your community, people you go to school with, university. So those are your community. And those are the ones that you really belong to. And the church might be just that thing you attend to do your religious duty. So that is certainly one big area which is a hindrance to the church. And we don't help ourselves when we make church all about the Sunday. So long as you come to church on Sunday, you're part of the church and you're a Christian and that's all you need to do. Well, it's not. That's not how Paul would have understood Christianity at all. It had nothing to do with just the meeting. The meeting was only the catch-up meal for the week of time spent together because they were all families already. They were already close together already.
Yeah.
So I think we've minimized we've set the bar to the absolute minimum for what it means to be a Christian in the first place. If it's just about going to church on a Sunday, sorry, that's not Christianity. Anybody can do that, honestly.
Yeah.
It's the church really encouraging or creating ways in which the members can be fully immersed in each other's lives and really be part of community. So, the Bible studies and the outings and these kinds of things. The challenge for that, of course, on the counterpoint, is that it's such a busier world where I live in Hazelbrook, for example, and I work an hour and a quarter away in Parramatta, and I go to a church in another town, and I've got friends, I've got different communities around the world. It's so hard for me just to make that my local church community my whole life and to make that my set of boundaries. Almost impossible. And that's true for most people, particularly people with young families that are working and trying to raise kids. It's so hard to commit the time to a group that's required for them to be your identity. So we're really up against it in that way. So it's not just, it's an easy thing to say, don't just make it about the Sundays, but how do you do that?
Yeah.
That's a very difficult thing in the 21st century.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing. And so it's not even a negative. It's not even something we're doing wrong. It's just that we've almost had to set the bar so low just to give people something to grab onto. Because if you were to turn around and say you can't be a Christian unless 7 days a week you're fully devoted to your local community, well, that's a monastery. That's what you're saying. Well, no one can do that. So where do you draw that line? I think that's probably the key challenge I think,
Yeah.
is where we set the requirements, the basic requirements for membership would be.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.